Good afternoon and welcome to the panel discussion on bridging the gap between innovation and early stage investments in biotechnology. Let's start with an introduction to Chirate Ventures, followed by an introduction to the panel members. Chirate Ventures, we were called IDG Ventures in 2018. We are currently the country's largest homegrown venture capital firm with close to $1 billion in assets under management across 5 funds that we are managed and continue to manage. As an investment firm, we have over a century of collective investment experience that's demonstrated by our investment in over 105 companies with more than 68 companies active in our portfolio. Our investees are valued at over $13 billion currently, with a revenue rate of over $1.3 billion between them as of June 2021. As a sector agnostic and a stage agnostic firm, we have created over 13 market leaders across fintech, SaaS, healthcare, consumer tech, and deep tech sectors. Some of our investee companies have become household names, including FirstCry, Lenskart, Policy Bazaar, Myntra, which is now part of Flipkart, Bounce, CureFed, Nestaway, and so on. Our portfolio has put out 3 IPOs and 4 unicorns till date, including more companies going their respective paths in the next couple of years. The biotechnology sector, which is the amalgamation of healthcare, life sciences, wellness technology, agri-tech, agri-biotech, and other biosciences-led technologies, has been a very critical sector, seeing over $160 million of investment from us across our funds. Some of the well-known names from our portfolio in this space include Forest Health, Zumitor Biologics, Aether Biomedical, HealthPlex, Zictuple, CureFed, AeroLeap in the recent times, Axio Biosolutions, HealthifyMe, Redcliffe Life Sciences, etc. And not to forget the 2 promising breakthrough innovations in the form of KBCols Sciences and WeInnovate Biosolutions that you will get to hear about in today's panel. As one of the most active venture capital firms in the early stage, we look forward to identifying and co-creating many more disruptive innovations in the biotechnology landscape. With this brief overview, I would request Dr. Manish to please introduce the panel members and moderate the wonderful discussion ahead of us. I won't stand between you and the wonderful discussion we have for today. The discussion will be followed by a quick question and answer session from the participants. Dr. Manish, so please.
Many thanks, Kailash, for giving a crisp introduction about Chirate, the leading venture fund and investor office. This has done and facilitated the ecosystem in other sectors other than biotech especially, and has created a relevance and anchored many such businesses which are now have become household names, including 4 unicorns as well as 3 IPOs. So it's a huge huge contribution to the sector. In today's interaction of about an hour, we will be looking at how the biotech sector is growing, what are the different opportunities, and both in the eyes of, let's say, startups, as well as investors. And Mr. Sudhir's presence here would actually help us navigate and develop that understanding. The message from this interaction would be very relevant for the aspiring entrepreneurs, startups who are looking for raising funds beyond grants and looking at mobilizing of private equity, funds through private equity, as well as the large number of angels, VCs, and HNIs who are there in the country wanting to look at biotech sector, but haven't got initiated in that direction. And probably understanding or a flavor from this discussion might be helpful for all. I am joined here with none other than Sudhir Sethi ji. So welcome, Sudhir ji. Wonderful for
Thank you, Dr. Manish.
Being here. The 2 exemplar startups, WeInnovate founder Dr. Milind is here with us. Hello, Milind.
Hello, Dr. Manish.
And KBCols founder member Dr. Vaishali is also here. Hello, Dr. Vaishali.
Hello.
So both the Milind's venture, which is called WeInnovate, and Vaishali's venture, which is called KBCols, have grown over a period of time, and they have begun their journey from ideation, reached to a stage when they have started raising first round of funding, and Chirate was the anchor investor in their first round. So I think we have both parties here, the investor as well as startup. So let me begin with Mr. Sudhir and ask you one thing, that since you've been working in this area for so long, and the biotech sector has been a little off the grid till of late. So what has made you to look at this sector more closely? Not only look at that and started entering into the sector, and have now companies in your portfolio which are technology led in the biotech sector. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Manish, and it's a pleasure to be here, especially with Vaishali and Milind, who I have a lot of regards for, and we are learning every day from what they're doing. So what made us look at this? So fundamentally, what do we at Chirate look at? We look at young, bright entrepreneurs, agile entrepreneurs who we think can build large companies over a period of time, who are solving a real problem. Okay, and just to give an example, the vision of KBCol is to replace chemical colors. Very large vision. Okay, that market has not been defined in some sense. The vision of Milind is to stop infections in hospitals through antibacterial catheters, and India consumes about 4 crore catheters every year. These are large visions, and they require technology to get executed. And when you execute these, what attracts us is untapped market, new product, new technology, new business, new revenue model, and not in an or situation, but in an and situation. So effectively, the path to building a new company has to be discovered. And these kind of companies have not been built before, but they're solving potentially very real challenges, which have not been solved before. And that is the playbook for Chirate to fund many of our companies, if not all, which we have done in the last 15 years. So for us, this is not a new playbook, but we found new entrepreneurs in the BIRAC ecosystem. And I call the BIRAC ecosystem a very powerful ecosystem, because until we met in our room, in our boardroom here, I still remember that meeting. I think, if I remember correctly, Milind, about 8-10 companies that came that day from BIRAC.
Yes.
And this was about 2-3 years back.
Yeah.
We sort of discovered that ecosystem and said, oh, this is very interesting, because if we are able to find more entrepreneurs whose vision is as large as the two present here, and using technology to build companies which have never been built before, that is something to look at. So I think that's, for us, it's a very simple equation. Technology at the center, solving very real large challenges at the left-hand side, which have a deep impact on the market, and outsized financial returns. That's where we take risk. So that's why we came here. We discovered a new area.
I think very clear. So the three fundamentals that you mentioned, you looked at, let's say, in that particular boardroom, you had interaction with 10 different companies, but you identified, let's say, WeInnovate, one single company. So if we get into more granularity, beside the large vision, untapped market, and the solid technology base, what differentiated in your mind, let's say, WeInnovate as a proposition compared to the rest of the propositions in that particular room?
I think the entrepreneurs themselves was a very key differentiator. That's a very, very big thing. The audaciousness of the vision, that is very important, because audaciousness of the vision requires risk capital. That was the second. And I think the third was the fact that we believe that in these areas where both KBCol as well as WeInnovate have excelled, we believe that what they're trying to build is possible. There are risks, but we believed after meeting them, it is possible. And I must tell you, we have a process of evaluating companies, but this is not a playbook where it has been taught in business schools. It is taught in a book, right? This playbook is, I must say, half method and half madness. So we believed that in that sense, for me, it was, okay, I think these are the two very interesting companies. If possible, we'd like to put money behind them. That was an instinctive decision based on what they presented. And subsequently, we did all the homework, et cetera, and hopefully we took a fast decision to come in overall. So these are the differentiators which are very, very important. And we've got not two such companies. If you take, we've got, another, I would say 15, 20 companies in the last 3 years who have met that criteria, and which is the same playbook which we applied here. It was just a different, the BIRAC ecosystem, I must congratulate you, Dr. Manish, is a very powerful ecosystem. And we hope that we can see much, much more companies than just two, because we are very excited by what these two companies are doing.
Thank you, Mr. Sudhir. I think we will representation from BIRAC ecosystem, both Milind and Vaishali are here. So let us hear from them. Milind, would you take a couple of minutes to explain what is your technology? What's your startup journey so far been before you actually interacted Chirate and then converted that opportunity into a tangible outcome? And then we move to Vaishali to understand the ventures and your early phase of journey. Go ahead, Milind, over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Manish. And very nice to be on the panel where all the eminent people are there. So I think Dr. Manish was a person who actually saw our journey in the initial phase, and Sudhir is the person who is currently now looking at our journey. So I'm very happy to connect to both of you and be on the same panel. So WeInnovate Biosolutions works in infection prevention and control with our patented nano-AGSite technology, which is high-tech silver nanoparticles having broad spectrum antimicrobial activity. And now I think everybody knows about infection prevention. So, I mean, you rightly asked about this. So I think before we had to spend around 2-3 slides explaining what is infection prevention. But these days now we have to only sum it up in one single line and people understand about infection prevention. So with silver nanoparticles technology, we were actually building silver nanoparticles technology for last 4 years with BIRAC and multiple other government agencies supporting us. Post that, we actually incorporated this into a real tangible problem. So we went in, identified the problem, and we realized that hospital acquired infections is a very big problem, and it has multiple outshoots by which it is causing a big problem in the whole healthcare ecosystem, whether it is expense on the terms of hospital stay, whether it is on the terms of pressure on antimicrobial resistance, which is a global burden these days that we are seeing. So we realized and we understood the problem, and then we studied that hospital acquired infections are usually spread by the medical devices which stays with the patient, and these medical consumables are staying with the patient for 3 days and more. So all the simple tubes which are inserted, starting from IV cannula to catheters to multiple other tubes which are there. Now these tubes does not have a cleaning procedure available, and
just like we saw the black fungus growing out of oxygen concentrator, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
So all these medical devices becomes a powerhouse of spread of infections, because at one way they are draining the fluids out of the body. At the same time, they can become a passage for bacteria to climb inside the body and cause the infections. So what we thought is, why can't we make these devices smarter? So what we essentially did is we added our silver nanoparticles and gave these devices power of fighting with bacteria by themselves. So now all these antimicrobial medical devices are taking care of infections by themselves, and by which we are almost reducing more than 70% of hospital acquired infections. Starting with the first product, which we've recently launched this year itself, which is a urinary catheter. And catheter associated UTIs are more than 80% of all the UTIs happening. So it's a very big problem. And because of that, now we are saving more than 70 to 80% of catheter associated UTIs. More than that, we are reducing around 40,000 units of antibiotics excessive usage. So by which we can actually reduce the pressure on bacteria to gain resistance to the antibiotics which are available. So it's a global problem. Happy to say that we have post Chirate investments, we have reached to 5 states in India, done more than 15,000 catheterization and more than 80,000 units of excessive antibiotics saved. So, it is post that it was actually a very fast forward journey, because capital was something which was lacking. That's one thing. And, even if we talk about medical devices companies, regulatory pathways are longer. And though we have good understanding of regulatory pathways, this is a very capital intensive process. So a capital backing always helps you accelerate the process much faster. And I think in our case, it helped.
So thank you, Milind, for a clear kind of elucidating where you started and at what stage you are. May I ask you, at what stage you recognize that you need to now start generating follow-on further funding, and you reach to, let's say, VC firms like Chirate?
Yeah. So this is a very interesting story. I mean, we have been one of those blessed companies who have got multiple grants from BIRAC. So it's not just BIG, but BIRAC generously supported us with SIBRI grant followed than that. And the Department of Science and Technology also supported us with multiple grants, along with Venture Center's contribution through multiple other schemes that were there. But with all those grants, what we were focusing on is tech development mostly. But at some point of time, we realized that tech development is fine, but then it has to reach out to the end consumer as a product. And then we were working on 2-3 different products. But at some point of time, we realized that focus is very important. And I think Dr. Manish's outlook is also very important, because I think in one of those interactions, we have had his input as a mentor to us that we have to focus on one line. And when we started focusing, our pathway became clear. And at that point of time, we realized, yes, we can achieve a faster go-to-market strategy, and we can get our product much faster into the market. But if we have to do that, we have to really be backed by a substantial amount of capital. And I think VC ecosystem is one of the major. So we were typically looking at grants and grants option only. But then when we realized that now we require money for scaling up of operations and go to market strategies, at this point of time, we need to have a disciplined kind of an approach towards spending money as well. And at that point of time, I think a professional investor plays a very important role in fact, disciplining a startup. So that was one of the major thing which was going on in our mind to raise a capital from a VC fund.
I'll come back to you, Milind, on this, the disciplining of startup and realizing the kind of inflection or a switch from technology development to technology deployment stage. So let me touch base with Dr. Vaishali. Vaishali, could you also brief us about your technology and the innovation that you have successfully delivered, and also let us know which stage your company is, and any interesting turning point from grants to venture funding that you can also touch upon. Thank you. Over to you.
Sure. First, I would like to thank BIRAC and Chirate. So KBCols is working on natural colors. As we all know, colors, they are used everywhere, like from the food we eat to the clothes we wear. So all these colors come from chemical synthesis, or they are coming from petroleum sources, which is a non-renewable energy. So KBCols is working on natural colors. We are producing colors from renewable biomass, which also includes small bacteria from small living organisms. And so the colors right now we have, for example, is blue, pink, green, and other colors we are having. And we have also shown its application in textile sectors. The food sector is also in the pipeline, along with the cosmetics. So it is all about the natural colors, and what we believe is we are trying to color the world in a safer way. So let's see how it goes for us.
Very noble thought, Vaishali, indeed. Could you also let us know at what point you thought that the technical know-how can actually make a difference, and you can actually enter the whole world of textiles and cosmetics in real sense?
Okay, so It was because of the impact we saw it was creating, the innovation it was creating. Why we choose textile market? Because it is having a less regulations. So regulatory approval was comparatively easy compared to food or cosmetic sectors. And the impact with KBCols colors, we are showing is like we are reducing almost 50% of water consumption in textile industry. And if you see a case study, nearly 20% of water is polluted only because of textiles. So with our KBCols color, which are biodegradable, we are showing 50% less COD and BOD. So that is the impact which we saw initially, and hence targeted the textile sector. And also we are working on less carbon footprint technology.
I think everybody can relate to it, and I think common public as well as decision making or policy advocacy groups as well. Very right, he said. Let me touch base with Mr. Sudhir here. Sudhir ji, there were 2 points raised. One was recognition of discipline in a startup's journey, and second, the larger impact, larger than life impact that venture company is reflecting, that they can probably reach into that direction. And through the journey involves a lot of regulatory compliances, understanding of regulatory requirements, as well as complying to those. So do you think especially in the biotech startups, the discipline in the startup founding team and team members, and the regulatory aspect that a biotech venture has to go forward, how do you perceive these two things? Your comments on this. If you can unmute yourself.
Sorry, I must say that before we met BIRAC companies, our view on regulatory environment, because we had done medical devices earlier and getting FDA approvals was a very long process. So we actually, for almost about 10 years, did not do anything which required regulatory environment approvals. I think the only one we did was Policy Bazaar, which is more in the consumer space overall. But I think, compared that to medical devices, which we did a couple of companies there. We did one biotech company, Zomato. In this case, I believe one of the big reasons why we also took that risk, if I may say, is the go-to-market was much faster. And the go-to-market being faster, that means your technology getting into productization. Your technology getting into productization and then going into the market through proof points as well as a commercial release in India and in a few countries outside is something which we saw on a faster scale in these two companies than we saw perhaps in medical devices, as an example in a comparison part. So that's a very big this thing. So we are okay with the regulatory compliances to be met. In some sense, do understand all companies, whenever they take our product, let's say food, there are regulatory compliances. If you take even commerce, there are regulatory compliances. So effectively, we believe now we are in the same space because the go-to-market for the product to go to the consumer or the business is actually faster in these two companies and hopefully other companies. Just to add one point to the previous comments which were made by both Milind and Vaishali, is I think it is worth noting during the time when we invested, within a few months, both the companies saw COVID dawning on them. Okay. And in our portfolio, 70 or 75% of the companies did better post-COVID than pre-COVID, because that discipline of building a company was amazing. Sorry, let me just. And that is very, very crucial overall. I think what we saw both WeInnovate and KBCol do for product development, for setting up a plant, getting the production out during the 18 months in the last 18 months or so but I think the only word I have was magical. It is just huge amount of commitment, and I was always worried about, hey, are you taking personal risk and so on and so forth. But in both the cases, that was amazing. That was really amazing. So well done.
I think both Milind and Vaishali needs to be congratulated on that aspect. So Sudhirji, you mentioned about road to market was faster. So in your opinion or in your perspective, what would be that faster means, like duration, if you can define that?
We are in the world of uncertainty, which is what we like. We are in the world of no predictions. We are in the world of treading carefully in areas where no man has ever gone before. I'm quoting Star Trek, Captain Kirk. But I think there's no fixed formula here, right? Today WeInnovate is selling thousands of catheters, and I'm talking about sales to the hospital, then to the patient, rather than to the distributor. As far as KBCol is concerned, several proof of concepts which are running successfully, and new plant has been set up to get volume so that they can deal with production overall. So there is no formula here. It could be 1 year, 2 years in these cases, in some cases 2.5, 3 years. I think we are fine with that. Because we are seeing production, we are seeing.
This will only be scope of work. Otherwise, we didn't have to consult.
Okay. We have a conversation here going on.
Sorry, I'll
No, I'm really grateful to you for that. Otherwise, it's just
No, I'm getting that
because
done.
given the pile of work.
Miss Tanvi, if you can mute yourself.
Care of in these salary things.
Kailash, can you just ask Tanvi to mute, please?
Sure, I'll.
Thank you.
Okay.
Please carry on.
So yeah, so there's no prediction here in terms of how many years or how many months. I think these are the ranges which are there. But certainly the progress made during the last 18 months was a big confirmation that we had invested in the right team, the right product, the right technology, and the right markets.
I'm sure you would have done your due diligence before it actually translated into.
But Dr. Manish, these things don't come out in due diligence. So that's the point I'm making. Due diligence can be done on technology. It can be done on something known. What's in the future, you can't do due diligence overall. It is the fundamental issue is then you back the quality of the entrepreneur, and that's more softer issues. And I think early stage or seed stage, right? You have to believe in that audacious goal which these two entrepreneurs and many other entrepreneurs set overall. We have a company in upper bionic limbs, right? They want to change the world by over 10 million people in the world who have no upper bionic limbs. We have a company in the space of consumer robotics for children in the edtech space, right? Over 100,000 units installed, 100,000 children using it. I mean, these are audacious goals, and these products and business models do not exist anywhere in the world. And that is very, very crucial as one of the key criteria, because when the founder is building a unique company which has never been built before, right? That does attract risk investors like us in the seed stage.
And let me ask you a little bit, dig further on this. Identifying and recognizing such talent or such technologies would also be challenging from your perspective. So what has been your strategy to kind of identify the gems in the whole pile?
So you should assume, I'm a vegetarian, but I'm going to say this anyway. You should assume that we are like fishermen who cast a wide net. We discover, we meet. This year, December is almost over. I mean, beginning and hopefully over very fast. We've seen over 3,000 entrepreneurs. Okay, next year, I think we'll cross 4,500. The year after that, we are looking at building up our team and technology to see 6,000 entrepreneurs. That's how we discover. And that is very, very crucial. The more we meet outside, the more applications come to us. We launched a program called the Chirate Sonic program, which fundamentally went and said, look, after we get the deck, from the time we first meet, we will take a decision in 48 hours. And we did. Those companies are now in terms of getting the capital, which was about, we received in 1 month, 1,000 companies applying overall. So there is a lot of innovation, enormous amount of, in the 400-500 accelerators in the country. BIRAC is a very, very good ecosystem. It is world-class. I mean, it is world class. This is something which you and the entrepreneurs there have to be very proud of. So we go to these accelerators and incubators and angels in the country who do invest prior to us, either through grants or through seed angel funding, and then sort of look at that. Out of 3,000, we've invested this year about 20 companies.
That's a very highly selective criteria, and the bar is fairly, I would say, would be very high. So in your, if you were to kind of give a guidance to people who are potentially looking at investment from companies like Chirate, the exposure to, let's say, 3,000, 4,000 companies in a year, and the quality attention from the review process, the span of interaction or the exposure, I believe, would be short, right? So could you help people guide in terms of what precise information that you would be looking or expecting from such pitch decks, or clarity in thoughts, or what would be the key elements that must be there so that they can actually catch the attention of the firm? And once they catch the attention, I'm sure like there would be second or third round for further interactions. So the first hit, what should be the best example?
I think first and foremost, again, it is right now simple. A lot of people working on reviewing companies which come to us. So it helps if it comes through a reference. That means I know Dr. Manish, and if you believe in a company which is superbly doing well, then your writing to somebody in Chirate would have a different meaning, or somebody else who's a role model or a key person. And that matters, because what happens is once you receive 3,000, there has to be a pecking order in terms of how to get this file right up top. Okay. And so VCs, people like us, we never let a company which has come to a reference go without one meeting. The answer is very simple, right? Any reference, it doesn't matter. So that's the first thing. Second thing is communication is very important. Structuring your thoughts is very important, right? And people like us don't just come when the entrepreneur is ready. We just come even 6 months earlier and say, hey, tell us what you're doing. That's very, very crucial. But don't have a 70-page presentation. I think the first 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 pages is good enough overall. That makes a big difference, because entrepreneurs, especially in technologies field, perhaps may not express what they want to do, right? In terms of the audacious goal which they want to achieve, right? And that's very crucial for them to think about it in that system. That's why we go in the market and we have sessions very often, right? Either nowadays it's much easier because you're doing it on the web. We say, okay, here is one of our team members and he's just here to answer questions. And we do this literally every week or every fortnight right now. So quality of communication becomes very, very crucial. And I think the third thing is build a set of people around you who can guide on all sorts of, and especially go to market. I think technology is one side of the coin, but how fast can the go to market happen? I still remember our discussions with both Vaishali, Arjun, and as well as Milind. Fundamentally, many of our discussions were not just product, and they will speak more about it. Is like, hey, how about getting some sales overall? And I like the two founders speak about that, because that's very crucial, because go to market is very, very important. And technology entrepreneurs may not, and I'm saying may not, focus on that. Ultimately, that's the acid test for any product to go into the market. So I think there's simplistic answers, but there's no rocket science. You're right. All 3,000 entrepreneurs will not get the kind of attention which perhaps they would want, but we try our best there.
I think thank you for this very candid and conscious reflection of thoughts. I'm sure all the startups who are listening or who would be listening to this podcast later can get note of this. So in the since you are sector agnostic, Sudhirji, and you are looking at IT, fintech, edutech, and the biotech area, do you find any difference in the kind of the propositions which are coming from these sectors, and if anything that stands out from the biotech sector that you can highlight?
Yeah, deep technology. Deep technology stands out immensely. Just to give you a feel, deep technology elements, right, which we look for actively, because technology differentiates the product which is coming out intensely. Okay. For instance, today in our companies, we've invested in over 110 companies. We've got 70 odd active today. They filed 130 patents and 31 have been granted overall. So we look at patentable technology, we look at technology which is simplistic in nature, and so on and so forth, and can go to market faster. This is in blockchain, this is in Internet of Things, this is in extended reality, the whole area of artificial intelligence, machine language, robotics, IoT, security. In the space area, we are looking at it very actively. We're looking at mobility very actively. We just committed to an autonomous vehicle company in the market space, very interesting company overall. So I think technology plays a very, very key role because that is difficult to copy. Business models and revenue models are not difficult to copy. Technology and product are very difficult to copy. And it requires a different DNA from the entrepreneur. It also requires a different DNA from the VC, by the way. And it also requires a different DNA from the mentor, like BIRAC in this case.
Right. I think point well made. Yes, it's a maybe quite a few number of people coming together to make a venture really successful.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And I must add, if I look at just our companies, last year would mean, sorry, I mean, already counting it last year, 2021, our deep tech companies, right, just pure deep tech companies, collectively raised about $150 million. And we expect this deep tech set of companies in 2022 to raise approximately $300 million. So there is capital available. It may be not that many as who fund e-commerce companies, but there is capital available, select capital available, who understand technology and understand, you know, how to go to market, how to commercialize it, and how to build a large company.
I think that's a very positive outlook of the sector from the mobilizing of the private equity on this side. Let me come back to you, Sudhirji, on this. Vaishali and Milind, if you want to highlight any particular aspect that you think that has got you the initial grants, right? The risk capital to nurture your idea to, let's say, an asset which you can actually present to an investor, right? So the success criteria for conversion, so that your value proposition looks like an asset and it is valued by the investor. So anything that you want to convey to your peers, the other biotech startups, if you can share your pearls of wisdom to them. Maybe Vaishali, would you like to go first?
Yeah, definitely. I would like to add few points here. Like as Sudhir also mentioned, like coming from a tech background. So yes, technology is there, but just talking about technology in pitch deck is not enough. So what we did was we tried to try to understand some basic business model. So we really worked upon the business model. I would like to suggest this only for the deep tech people, that they should really work on positioning their technology, how they can position their technology in the market, or how can they reach to certain set of customer or targeted customer. So positioning the technology in a correct way and in a correct time is very important, because once you have that risk capital, it will obviously help you to build your technology, but it comes with a stipulated time. The grant comes with a stipulated time. So positioning the technology in a correct time is very important. So we really worked on that factor also for us.
Thanks, Vaishali. Milind, would you like to add?
Yeah, I think a very valid point from Vaishali, but I think there are 2, 3 very important aspects because we have spent 5 years already before we raise our first capital from a professional VC for that matter. So out of that, those 5 years, there were some years wherein we had substantial amount of backing by the grants, but there were also some dry years wherein we had no grants, and then we literally have to work so passionately that we had to sell off some of our belongings and work on our savings and everything. So we had seen those dry days completely. So I think one of the first and foremost important thing which actually plays a role in any kind of fundraising for that matter is the passion behind the work that you are doing. I think if you are passionate enough behind what you are building, that passion is delivered by the way you are interacting. And then if you are true behind it, so there is no, as Sudhir said, there is no book from which you can learn these things. It's ultimately your own passion which drives the thing. So that is the first and foremost important thing. Before even you go for fundraising, you have to, as new entrepreneurs, have to ask themselves a question: do I really made for this, and is this the only thing that I want to do in my life? So I think that a fundamental question needs to be asked. And second is off grounding. Unless you off ground yourself from the grant funding or whatever support system you have to literally leave all those connections and then go into very dangerous deep waters and try yourselves out. In fact, I would say, even if you have only tech, try selling the tech to multiple people. Even if you do small revenues, you at least get a sense of how does it makes feels to sell something and then earn profits out of it. I think these two important things needs to be done for all the young entrepreneurs who are there, and especially to all the biotech based or medical devices based startups, because for us the gestation cycle is very long. And if we keep crying that the gestation cycle is long and how do I bring in sales and then only I can be in the market, I think that would be a wrong thing to judge. You have to let go all the support systems, go off ground, and immediately start looking at what you can do differently. And I think you will find an answer over there. So these are two most important things: off grounding, and I think sales is something that you should look at.
Fully agree, Milind. Mr. Sudhir, let me come back to you. You have identified a couple of them, like KBCols, WeInnovate, and if a sizable basket of these deep tech technologies. You would also recognize that there are angels and VCs who are also looking at the deep tech or the biotech sector, but yet not have come closer or committed themselves. They are kind of fence sitters, watching the field, feeling excited about it, seeing an opportunity, but are unable to tap or not coming forward to tap. Any piece of advice or sharing of your perspective to them? Because this biotech sector, the startup innovation sector, it's actually growing. So today in the country, we have 5,000 biotech startups, close to about 2,500 whom we actually follow through the BIRAC's direct BIRAC's network. So the pool of innovation or pool of opportunities is large, and there has to be a marriage of the two components. Any piece of advice or any thoughts?
So I think the grant system is very important. It does a lot of VCs and maybe angels don't even come that early when both of these companies started. It's only the grant system which comes. I do believe the grant system can scale and should scale higher. Many companies are getting out of the country. Technology companies and deep tech companies are actually shifting outside the country because other governments are giving bigger grants, and bigger grants are like at least between $1 to $3 million overall. That helps the company scale in those ecosystems. European companies are doing that. US is doing that. Actually, US is not too much grant, but European companies have a very good grant system. So I think the other thing is there are now, with 5,000 odd companies in this ecosystem, There are investors, angels, a few, not too many, who take risks. And, obviously invite them overall. I think we would welcome because they have the knowledge, we would welcome when we invest in the company, right? A few angels to come in along with us because they have knowledge more than what we have. And in the case of KBCol, when we are structuring the round, there have been 2 or 3 angel institutions, if I may say, who have deep knowledge in that area. And we're saying, please come, let's get some of the institutional angel. When I say institutional, means they're a group who's very focused on that space to come in. I think the third thing which will be very important is that there are some possibly large, let's say BIRAC companies which are large, okay, and they have gone out of the risk profile. And and that may be 10 or 20 of them. I think it's to promote the ecosystem in a very big way. It'll be good to talk to them and say, okay, why don't, when their next round of financing happens, why don't we get some angels there also? Because angels have to recycle their money overall. So it'll be good to actually, I would strongly recommend that if these 5,000 companies are there, because we don't know who the 5,000 are, we know a few, right? It'll be good to talk to the founders and say, in your next round or the current round, get, few angels to come in. They learn, they also feel successful, and then they can recycle that money back and put it into seed companies at a high risk. It's a good way to do it.
I think very practical advice. And from the BIRACs as a central enabler, since we see the ecosystem much closer, and there are some provisions that we have created a very early stage, like after the grant in aid, let's say both Milind and Vaishali mentioned the ignition grants, which are like 50 lakh rupees each.
Right.
Once the startup reaches beyond POC, then they become eligible for equity investments. We call it as seed or leap, which gives 30 lakhs up to and 1 crore as an investment through the incubator network. I think this is the stage when we are seeing almost like 5 times growth in the capital raising by the companies. And this is coming from a lot of participation from angels and early stage VCs. Yeah. And now we will add both Milind's and Vaishali's case that Chirate has supported them with close to $1 million or $0.6 million, so as to say. So I think this is a interaction point where maybe the more number of players can be mobilized and this ecosystem can be strengthened. I think very, very practical advice. Anything that you would see that the biotech sector in your eyes, given the COVID exposure recently, so not only in the eyes of like experts, but eyes of non-initiated people in the for the domain, the health tech sector has been now recognized both at individual level to national and international levels. Do you think that will mobilize some of the international funding or investments to India? And probably some of the startups need not actually go outside India to raise the capital. And if you can share insights from the VC circles, and would be helpful.
So I think there is a multiple layers. I'll answer this question. There is a value hopefully which VCs bring to the companies. I think it's good for the entrepreneurs to say that, and the reason for that is because I think in the biotech ecosystem that may not be well known. The importance of scaling, the importance of go to market faster. Funding is a two-sided coin. It is the investor and the acceptor, right? Many cases, what happens is the acceptor may say, I think I don't want a VC. That's also possible, by the way. Or I may want less than what I think, what the VC thinks. I think those issues, maybe BIRAC can organize some sessions where entrepreneurs like Milind and Vaishali have speak about how they took that decision, what was the engagement patterns, how the VCs interact overall. That's very crucial for the entrepreneurial ecosystem to understand, and also for the angel ecosystem. Both good and bad. It's not just good. Okay. I think the other thing is, to my mind, is very important, is this is very new to India even today from an investment perspective, the whole biotech area. But what is not new to India is health. So I want to come back to that. And there's a subset here. See, the way health has been looked at, to my mind, from an investor point of view, is when a patient is not well, come to a hospital. That's the broad thesis of health. Now, our thesis is very different. Our thesis is health consists of 5 stages. Prevention, it consists of diagnostics, it consists of therapy, rehabilitation, and medicine. To us, these are the 5 blocks. As I said, so far, all hospitals have been built not on the basis of prevention. When you fall ill, you come to me. Clinics, when you fall ill, you come to me. So what happens is, the number of hospitals you can build in the next 50 years are not going to be enough. The number of clinics are not going to be enough. The number of nurses are not going to be enough, because it's only when you fall ill, you're coming there. What matters is technology interfacing in the prevention side. So what is WeInnovate doing? And that's what attracted us, that is preventing infection. And there is a big market on which you can build a company in the prevention space. So WeInnovate falls in the prevention space for us right now. Okay. In health, there are very few people who are investing in the prevention space. So we are very clear that if more technology companies come in the prevention space, and I'll give you another example, because my family office does this work, family philanthropy fund. In the disability space, 6% of India has hearing disabilities. And by the way, bulk of India does not get screened at birth. There are regulations even in many cases where they have to be screened at birth. So if screening at birth is happening for babies within a week of being born, you will find that you catch at that level what has to be done, and you can take preventive action over the next 2, 3, 4 years if there's an issue. If within 2 years a cochlear implant is done, right, it is very expensive. Actually, the child can recover full speech and lead a normal life. So prevention is very, very important. And then that's one area. So we are looking for a lot of companies in the prevention space, in the health ecosystem, stroke the biotech ecosystem, stroke the medical devices ecosystem, and the list goes on. The second area is diagnostics. Diagnostics has been earlier, come to me, I'll take your blood sample. Now it's gone, I'll come to you, you take your blood samples. The third area which we invested in a couple of companies is we'll use technology. Okay, where a blood sample is potentially done, and there are many ways of skinning the cat here. Technology enables you to find out what's wrong with you overall. Just to give you, a retina scan can be a window to 6 to 7 types of human body diseases, right? Simplistically put, blood pressure or sugar and so on and so forth. So that also is an area which we are looking at very simply, where technology is used in diagnostics overall. And then comes what I call inter-disease capturing of data. Now let's come to this very simple. Cancer is a very large set of people in the country. But right now, people come only when they have cancer. But oral cancer can be detected through technology. One of our companies is now about to do that. When a person eating a pan walks into a dentist, all you need to do is take a picture, which through AI you can recognize if something is going wrong. It means that consumers going to a dentist, right? A dentist will know using technology if there's a potential oral cancer candidate. How do you get that to a cancer hospital or a cancer clinic as the next stage? Because cancer detection at an early stage through such technology and biomarkers can actually prevent stage 1 of cancer, which means the patient doesn't need to go to cancer hospital. Okay. You take the whole area of, let's say, cervical cancer. Gynecologists will need to identify that. When you see symptoms, send a person to a cancer. So their GPs can identify if certain technology is used to identify, and all can be through AR/VR, by the way. Okay. So we are looking at how these sections can be interfaced. We've invested in oncology. We've invested in oral cancer. Oral hygiene. We've invested in any other sector. There are 1 billion plus people in India who do not have access to excellent healthcare. How do you get that across? And how do you use data sciences? How do you use technology to crisscross and focus more on prevention and at the diagnostic level, so that people don't reach the hospital, okay? Which will enable the infrastructure of a hospital which is being built in the country to be used more efficiently. That is our thesis, and we are looking for more and more companies in that space. Long answer to a short question.
No, absolutely fine. In fact, I appreciate that, because what you enlisted is something which has been recognized as an unmet need. And if from the eyes of investor, you have seen that as an unmet need, imagine from the technology developers, like entrepreneurs, they also see the world in similar ways, and they have already started working on these solutions. Some of these solutions are increasingly moving to TRL 5 stage, technology readiness level 5, when they have already achieved the POC, and now building prototypes, viable prototypes, are looking at validation and actually trying to increase the asset value so that that becomes attractive to angels and VCs. So I feel very excited that the innovation ecosystem, where I can see from across the country how it's building up in the biotech sector, and expectations from the investment side, Chirate's perspective here that you have demonstrated, and couple of examples like WeInnovate and KBCol, which have saw the bridging of this expectations to deliverable match. I think this is good, and these, I would imagine, we will have many such success stories going forward. And this 1 hour of your time, all of your time, would be very meaningful and helpful for the peers, both from the startup side as well as, I believe, from the angels and VC sides. And from us, from the enablers perspective, we will take essence of this and probably also spread the word accordingly to the ecosystem stakeholder. So on behalf of the organizers, Chirate and BIRAC, I sincerely thank all my panelists, Sudhir ji for taking time out, Vaishali and Milind, congratulations again, and wish you success to raise the second follow-on round as early as possible and scale and move up the ladder. Thank you, Kailash. Back to you if you want to close or
Can I just mention one thing before Kailash comes in? I think, as I said, BIRAC has a very thriving ecosystem. You're a microcosm in yourself. I think you have 60 labs or 60 incubators running in the country.
Yes, 60 incubators across 18 states.
Across 18 states, which would mean how many entrepreneurs there?
So physical entrepreneurs or startups would be about 1,000 at any given time. About 1,500 have already moved into the ecosystem as physical incubators. But as you understand, the virtual incubation and associate incubation numbers are much larger. So just to give the stats here, so about 1,100 patents have been filed by the entrepreneurs, and about 600 plus products have reached the market from these entrepreneurs. So this particular, these numbers and this ecosystem is poised to grow. By 2025, we are anticipating the numbers of startups would get scaled from current 5,000 to about 10,000 in.
So I'd like to make you an offer, which is every month, we'd like to see 200 of your entrepreneurs for the next 24 months.
Fantastic. I take that offer. If not
Kailash,
200,
can you do that?
Yes, we can. Yeah. definitely, for sure.
So we will spend time because I think it's a beautiful entrepreneur ecosystem which you've built. It deserves the attention from investors like us, and love to. I mentioned a number 200 because I think we can handle that. We have some more people joining us, but if you can fix some criteria by which we'll meet them between BIRAC and Kailash, we would love to have 200 entrepreneurs being met every month.
Fantastic. I think that's a wonderful news for all the biotech startups, entrepreneurs. We will take that offer from you, Mr. Sudhir.
Thank you.
We look forward to working together. Yes, why not?
Excellent. Let's put this together. It's exciting times, and the least we can do is pay attention now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Would go a long way. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
that.
Thank you. Thank you, Vaishali and Kailash and Milind. Over to you, Kailash.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Manish, for moderating this wonderful discussion. I'd like to thank Mr. Sethi, our chairman, as well, for taking this time out, for spending this with us. And Dr. Milind and Dr. Vaishali, thank you so much for taking your time out as well. We have had a wonderful discussion, and the proof point of that is we don't have a single question. I'm sure we have answered most of the questions that the participants would have had, and pretty comprehensive in the coverage in terms of the various aspects of both fundraising as well as technology scaling and this rather difficult healthcare and biotech market. But we would, like Mr. Sudhir mentioned, I think we would, as Chirate Ventures investment team, we would love to stay engaged with this early stage ecosystem in biotech, and I look forward to engaging much more deeply, investing in many of the entrepreneurs in the ecosystem and helping them scale and bring about disruption, not just in Indian market, but also globally. So on behalf of the entire investment team here at Chirate Ventures, I would like to thank all the participants for joining in, and we would love to interact with you, with each one of you individually in the times to come. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Kailash.
Bye-bye. All the best.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.